All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Future of Leadership Development in Higher Education, Building Dynamic Leadership in Student Affairs. I'm Mary McGinnis, and I am the Director of Coach Development at Sounding Board. And I'm here alongside my colleague, Earl Cabellin, who's Director of Staff Experience and Culture at the University of Maryland in College Park. And we're really happy to have you here today. And we have a large audience joining us today. So we thought, as folks are coming in, that we would invite you to say a little bit about yourselves by sharing the institution that you're calling in from, uh, and the geography. Where are you in the world? And just for a little bit of fun, to add your institutional mascot or your colors. You can see that Earl is really sporting the colors today. So I'll just share a little bit about me. So I'm Mary McGinnis, and I'm here in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm an alumna of DePaul University, which is just down the road from me. And I also was a longtime administrator there at the university, and our mascot is the Blue Demon. How about you, Earl?
I am coming to you from the University of Maryland College Park, and our mascot is the terrapin, which is a turtle, if you didn't know what a terrapin is. So yeah.
Great, great. Well, let's see. Let me get us rolling. So some of you may not have a awareness of who we are at Sounding Board. So Anna is here with us today, and she's moving the slides for me. So Anna, thank you for that. So some of you may not know Sounding Board, so I wanted to share with you a little bit about who we are and what we do. So at Sounding Board, we have a mission, and our mission is to develop the world's most impactful leaders at all levels of an organization. And what that means is that leadership development is not exclusive to the highest levels of executive leadership. Leadership development is made available to all levels, from the individual contributor all the way up to the CEO, the provost, the president. And we support our leadership development with a platform that we call the Dynamic Development Platform. And you can see here from this model that our leadership development includes things like supporting mentoring, one-to-one coaching, group coaching. And as we partner with organizations and with businesses, we want to make coaching and mentoring programs easy to manage, easy to measure, easy to scale. So before we begin our webinar today, I want to take a moment to introduce ourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to Earl, who will introduce himself, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me.
Thanks, Mary. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. I am Earl Cabellin. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm coming to you from the University of Maryland College Park, where I am the Director for Staff Experience and Culture within the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs. I come to you today with over 20 years of experience within student affairs. My professional home, my only professional home, has been here at the University of Maryland College Park, where primarily a lot of my career has been focused around campus recreation and wellness. I started off in 2004 managing recreation facilities, and kind of moved up to a senior leadership role within our department, and now been given this amazing opportunity to serve our division of student affairs with nearly 2,500 full-time staff members, really with the sole purpose of creating a culture of professional development, some HR work, some work around belonging. And so I'm really fortunate to have this experience and be here with you all today. Some other things about me: I'm a graduate of the University of Rhode Island. I got my undergrad degree there, and then I got my master's at Bowling Green State University. And so I come to you with that little bit piece of me, and just again grateful for Sounding Board for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about our wonderful partnership together between Maryland College Park and Sounding Board. And so just grateful for folks to be here today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary.
Well, thanks, Earl. We're grateful to have you here, really. So I'm Mary McGinnis, and as I said, I'm the Director of Coach Development here at Sounding Board. What that means is that I oversee the mentoring and the development of our network of global coaches. And we develop them in our very impactful brand of coaching. My background has been in the higher education and nonprofit administration space. And over those years in those environments, I was very passionate about creating these spaces and places where we could improve collaboration and employee engagement and really help people to navigate transition and change that they were experiencing. And over the years, as I began to be more acquainted with coaching and the power of coaching, what I realized was that I was very interested in creating coaching cultures. And that led me to do coaching work and to become certified as a coach, and eventually to arrive here at Sounding Board. Um, I also continue to coach in higher education. So I'm coaching leaders all the way up that totem pole that I described, right? You know, from emerging leaders all the way up to executive leaders in an organization and within higher education and across the sectors. I want to share my pronouns as you did, she, her, and hers, and welcome you all here today as we have a very full agenda, and I'm very excited about this agenda. I'm seeing some people are coming into the chat, Earl, so it's nice to see so the diversity of who's coming in and where people are coming from. I see some folks here from Yale School of Medicine, folks in financial aid and management. So welcome, welcome. So let me share a little bit about our agenda and what we're hoping for today. You know, as we've shared our bios and our interest in coaching, what we discovered, Earl and I, is that we have about 52 years of combined experience as administrators and faculty in higher education. Both of us are executive coaches. We've been certified as coaches. And one of the things that we recognize is that coaching is a powerful tool for accelerating not only leadership growth and development, but the impact that can be made within organizations. And that it does it in ways that traditional leadership training and development cannot. So today we want to explore why the leadership development practices of the past no longer work for today in this evolving higher education landscape. We'll discuss what personal and institutional dynamics higher education leaders are facing today. And we'll spend some time here with Earl, who's going to be sharing with us how coaching has opened up new possibilities at the University of Maryland, particularly when it comes to their initiatives around innovation and inclusive thinking. We'll allow 15 minutes at the end for some Q&A. That being said, if you have questions that come up throughout our presentation today, feel free to share them in the questions feature of our Zoom technology. So that's there at the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A, and we'll be harvesting those questions and coming back and returning to them at the end. So let me get started. So here is the message. The world is increasingly uncertain. And effective leadership is more critical than ever before. And I want to paint a picture of what that looks like within the higher education landscape for a moment. None of this will be a surprise to you, but I want to point out what's going on really today in terms of this complexity that's increasing. We know that there's financial strain. And we look around and we see that there are small colleges and universities that don't have large endowments and they're struggling financially. We see a trend line where enrollments are going down. And in large state institutions, there's budget cuts that are impacting the quality of our education and what we're bringing to the students. And this is leading to increasing closings and mergers across the United States. Here in 2023, student debt is at an all-time high. The data is telling us $1.7 trillion in student debt. The decline in the public's confidence in higher education is in decline. The Gallup organization did a poll in 2015 and asked the American public about their confidence in education. And at that time, 57% of the respondents said we have confidence in the value of a degree. Today in 2024, 36% have confidence in the value of a degree. We're aware that there's intensified political influences and involvement on our campuses. And certainly the role of technology, AI in particular, has become a focal point for conversations among our faculty and our administrators alike. And we continue to place emphasis on the safety and the health of our campuses. So just a few things to get us percolating today. Not only is there increased complexity in this landscape or the cultures of higher education, but we see that complexity in leadership itself. We know that the tenure of key leadership roles within higher education, those of college presidents, for example, is shrinking in duration. And so that places emphasis and attention on succession planning, the need to develop leaders to succeed in these very important roles. Internal governance and the structure of higher education causes tensions between governing bodies. And then certainly the external political and social dynamics are a topic not only in our campus boardrooms, but they play out in national discourse. So effective leadership is more critical than ever before. Hannah, we can turn the slide. So this volatility, this complexity and greater uncertainty makes flexibility more valuable when it comes to leadership. An example of this is that in the past, we could have a structure in place in our organizations with this confidence that we know what's needed for some time into the future, but that's changing. Strategic planning, for example, there used to be a time when we did strategic planning and we put ourselves 6 years out into the future. And now today our planning cycles are 1 to 2 years at best. So we're facing situations we've never seen before. We're facing them on a daily basis. Technology is ramping up. We can't predict 3 to 6 months from now how technology is going to affect or impact us. And that demands that we think differently about the skills that are needed in our world of work. So I want to share with you some research that's being done by McKinsey Global Institute. So McKinsey has looked at the kind of jobs that are going to be lost, as well as those that are going to be created in the future as automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics begin to take even greater hold. And what I found really fascinating and interesting about this work is that they identified 56 types of high-level skills that they believe are going to become increasingly important as a result. And you can see those there in those quadrants on the screen. What this helps us to see is that the need for manual and physical skills, as well as some cognitive skills, are going to be in decline. But the demand for technological, social, and emotional and higher cognitive skills are going to grow. So some examples of this, and you can see this in the upper left quadrant, those skills in cognition, like adaptability and creativity, are becoming increasingly more important. The interpersonal skills of conflict resolution, fostering inclusiveness, collaboration, coaching is on that list. Self-leadership, which includes courage, grit, self-development, and then, of course, digital fluency and data literacy. What I notice when I look at this list of these future-proof skills for the new world of work is that many of them are what we would consider to be leadership skills, especially those that are associated with this mental flexibility, self-leadership, relatedness, effectiveness, emotional intelligence. And most of these skills are not commonly covered in our formal education. We're not studying this in grad school. This is not part of a PhD curriculum. Rather, we develop, we grow in these abilities and capabilities through experience in our role. What we see in higher education, and often particularly with new leaders, is that these people stepping into leadership have been recognized for teaching, for research, and people derive a lot of satisfaction from doing that kind of work. I derive a lot of satisfaction from doing that kind of work. But many are being placed into situations where they have to lead teams, where they must be change agents, and where they must prepare themselves, their teams, and their organizations for the future. So I want to take a minute to just do a little reflection together as a group here. And we're doing this in the way of a chat poll. And the question is this: as you reflect on that list of future-proof skills that I just shared with you, and then I'll ask Anna to put it back on the screen for a moment, what do you identify as the leadership strengths that you're bringing into your environment? So as you reflect on that future-proof skills, which do you identify as an area of strength in your leadership? And put them in the chat. And Earl and I will be taking a look over here to see who's with us. Thanks, Laura, for kicking us off. Interpersonal skills. How about others? Another way of kind of coming to this is, what do you feel is most important given the landscape and the context? Entrepreneurship and coaching, driving change and innovation, empathy, integrity, I'm reading here. Teamwork, Tyler says, yeah. So we can notice from these responses that these are less technical skills and what some might refer to as softer skills, right? We use that language in the world of training and development. Harder for us to get our arms around, right? Mental flexibility, adopting different perspectives. So we can see from the research and from our own experience that this is the kind of development that's needed. The development that's needed in higher education and even across industries today. Earl, anything you want to add just as you're reading our participants' response?
No, I think it's fantastic. And I think it really shines a light on how we in higher education, we need these to be at top of mind when we're thinking about developing leadership capabilities and capacities. I know we'll talk about it, but I'm seeing some names that I'm recognizing from my higher ed and student affairs and campus rec family. So really great stuff that folks are kind of putting here in the chat. So
yeah, very good, very good. There was one that caught my attention, which was role modeling. So very important, role modeling. So our leaders who can not only embrace and behave in these sets of skills, but they actually are demonstrating it through their behavior, and other people are experiencing from them. Again, that kind of goes back to where what interests me and drives me in terms of coaching cultures and developing these cultures, that there's a real tangible experience or embodied experience of teamwork and creativity and imagination, as those have identified here.
Yeah, Mary, and I appreciate the mental flexibility piece. I think that is so necessary in change management. I mean, a lot of us are dealing with maybe new leadership and new ways of doing things, and to have that mental flexibility is so critical and crucial in the work that we do. So I appreciate Megan for dropping that into the chat.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I know we're eager to hear from Earl and how they're tackling these uncertain times in his environment and developing leaders. But I want to just share a little bit of how we think about developing dynamic leaders, our approach to developing higher education leaders today. So if we'll move to the next slide, what you see here is the methodology that we use here at Sounding Board. And we've already established that adaptability and flexibility is key, along with all of these other things: self-leadership, interpersonal effectiveness, self-management, coaching, mentoring, teamwork, all of those things. And we contend that if a leader is unable to themselves learn quickly, grow in those kinds of skills and cope with the complexity and the uncertainty that they encounter, that the likelihood that they'll be able to do that well and effectively with their teams is reduced. An example of this is that, in the wake of the pandemic, or even as the pandemic was emerging, we saw in our work with faculty and staff and with students that people were trying to cope through this uncertainty, through this ambiguity. A lot of fear was here and present, and they were trying to, for themselves, manage in this new environment, let alone helping others to manage in this new environment. And this layered on a lot of stress. It layered on a lot of pressure that comes from having to learn your way through it as it's happening. And it also, radiates out into all aspects of one's life and one's profession. So our contention is that, in the more traditional way of thinking about development, we think about horizontal development, right? It's that ability to acquire some new skills and knowledge and information. And it's about looking for the gaps and then covering those gaps with training. And this is important that we have these skills. And when we think about skills in the vein of horizontal development, it's just much more technical. It's more concrete. It's more tangible. We can get our arms around it. You see the quote here: "This helps me get things done in my job." We embrace horizontal development and vertical development, and we contend that leaders need both of these things. So as we move toward growth in vertical development, we're helping and assisting our leaders to develop what we call capabilities. And what capabilities are, very simply, is building a repertoire, having a range of skills and responses and mindsets that help that leader to impact the work that they're doing on a daily basis. And if we move beyond that continuum and move over to capacity, this is where it becomes a little less tangible, right? A little more advanced, that we're developing capacities in a leader so that they can go deeper. They can go deeper in those skills. They can go deeper in their sets of practices, deeper in those mindsets, so that they can hold sway within shifting, evolving sets of circumstances that they encounter. So capacity helps the leader to create situationally effective, sustainable impact. And it looks like those things that we're talking about here in the chat. It looks like the ability to shift a perspective or a mindset or a worldview. It's having greater capacity for empathy, for collaboration, and it's blended. It's really the most advanced. So with that in mind, I want to turn the mic over to Earl and have him share the story around the student affair landscape today, and how at University of Maryland College Park they're developing leaders with this methodology as a backdrop.
Thank you, Mary. And, again, to many of my student affairs colleagues out there, a lot of this is not new information. And as you all know, in today's rapidly evolving educational landscape, we in student affairs are navigating a complex array of challenges and opportunities. And I think Mary kind of highlighted it from the very beginning that, we are in a VUCA environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and there's ambiguity. And I just want to underscore that, each student affairs unit, whether you're a small program or a large institution, we're all dealing with different issues. And what I'm sharing with you is really my lens of how I see our profession currently. But without any doubt, what I believe to be true is that these are probably the most challenging times our profession has faced. And I think, if I'm going to put my coach's hat on right now, I'm just going to name a little bit about the here and now and what is happening. And I think Mary kind of talked a little bit about that. But if you're a college president, if you're a VP, you're probably talking maybe about the conflict between Israel and Palestine and the impacts that it's had on our student population. With that, I want to also name that we're having some challenges around freedom of speech and the First Amendment. Mary talked a little about the upcoming election, which I think is going to create some challenges, possible challenges for us. For a lot of my colleagues from across the country, the scrutiny of DEI and the impacts from a legislation standpoint is kind of here and now. And again, overlay that with the rise of AI. And I think there's some folks from student conduct here that would kind of argue that it's here and now, and we're just trying to figure it out. So just in the here and now, I've just kind of named things that are already a lot for us as a profession. But then when you really drill it down, even before the pandemic, the mental health and well-being of our people. We know that in a recent survey in the Thriving College Index report that 65% of students reported still feeling stressed, which is a decrease from 70% in the previous year. Similarly, anxiety and worry were reported by 57% of students, which is down from 63%. And really, despite these decreases, the percentages still indicate a high prevalence of stress and anxiety among our student population. And we in the profession are the ones working with our students. And so there is an impact that it has on us as professionals in student affairs and our well-being. And, it can result in burnout and compassion fatigue and the like. I also want to just name, the financial constraints that Mary kind of alluded to at the beginning. Workload management, we are hearing more and more about as a profession that maybe Gen Z has it right with work-life balance. And maybe we've been doing too much as a profession, and how do we balance supporting our students, their programs, but also taking care of our workload as a profession, and then again, navigating telework. That second point around our leaders and supervisors, supporting and equipping them to handle the challenges of our staff burnout, our retention, fairness, and equity issues needs to be addressed. And in the NASPA Compass report, it indicated that 39% of professionals reported that their institutions are not discussing or prioritizing changes in the student affairs workforce. And this could really point to concerns about staff retention and job satisfactions in the field. And so we know our supervisors are challenged with not only doing their role, but also supporting their people. And so, we need better systems to support leaders now more than ever. And then the final point is that, we know that inclusive excellence is a priority in our profession, fostering sense of belonging. Staff are reporting the importance of working in an environment where they are making an impact and recognized for their contributions is very important. And so trying to figure out ways, which I will say takes time and resources to really work on, is something that is kind of at the forefront for all of us in student affairs. And again, we'll ask a little bit about other things that are at play that are impacting our leaders, but this is, again, just a little bit about kind of what's happening in student affairs. And so, Anna, if we can go to the next slide. I also wanted to name that institutional dynamics exist that impact how our universities think about developing leaders today. And your institutional culture determines much of the dynamics that exist on your campus. And all of these impact your people and leaders. So I'm just scratching the surface, but these are just some of the institutional dynamics I'm seeing in our field. And if you're in student affairs, you know that we've put a high value on professional development through maybe attending conferences like NASPA, ACPA, and NERSA to get that leadership development that you need and bring back to your institutions. But what we're finding out is that there are some benefits to this, but the application of learning doesn't always stick. And some go back to their natural patterns of behavior. And so this notion of one size fits all kind of trainings may not always be the most effective, in my opinion. I think they're great. And I think we need to just kind of reimagine our learning in terms of leadership development and what that can really mean. There is a clear need for well-defined leadership standards and expectations for leaders to align their development and performance, particularly around our performance evaluations and how they tie back to the leadership standards, the capabilities, and the capacities we want to see in those performance evaluations and how they're celebrated institutionally. And then the final piece that I'll kind of name is, again, the tyranny of the immediate and the sense of urgency for work over people development. And this is something that as a profession, we know what the tyranny of the immediate can do. There's always fires to put out, there's always things. But the reality is that we're human beings and we're not machines. And having some interventions in place to kind of bring back, where do we need to sunset programs? Where do we need to step back so our people can really learn and grow and develop, and have a both and, have high standards of excellence, but also creating moments and pockets where folks can really, again, attune to their professional development and learning and growth. And so, again, those are just some of the institutional dynamics that could be impacting your university. And I'm sure there's others that folks can name. And so with that, we're going to go into our next poll. And in the chat, we would love to kind of hear from you. What else are you seeing in the higher education landscape that has had an impact on a leader's ability to lead effectively? And so if you want to put it in the chat, Mary and I will do a scan and we'll see what's there for you. We have internal mobility without proper leadership practice. I think Mary talked a little bit about that earlier. Yes, definitely. Yeah, the challenges of disconnect between staff and faculty practices. Absolutely, we're seeing a lot of that happen at our institution here as well. Lack of clear metrics tied to goals, priorities, and too many priorities. I think as a profession, like we need to come up with a framework on what does sunsetting look like and the evaluation of our programs and say no to it unapologetically. So yeah, I would agree with that. Inadequate resources, lack of vision, which then impacts prioritization. What is considered important without vision, everything feels like a priority. Absolutely. Wow.
I'll add something, Earl, too, right?
Yeah.
The opportunity to lead, right? We hold a belief that one can lead from wherever they are in the organization. And so having those opportunities to grow and develop in one's leadership and to get that feedback and mentoring that exists is if that's not there, that can be a barrier, not only to growth, but of course to results, to being effective. If you don't have practice, that's very limiting.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Well, these are all great. Keep them coming if you're kind of getting your thoughts together. And I think, Anna, we can go to the next slide where I'll share a little bit about, what's happening here at University of Maryland College Park. So just a couple of things I want to highlight before we talk about, why leadership coaching. Our division has gone through a new mission, vision, values, and we've identified our new vision, which is every student thrives. But what we know and believe is that in order for our students to thrive, the people who are shaping their experiences must thrive. And those people are you on this webinar, most likely. Most of us heard the safety speech at the beginning of a flight, inviting individuals to put on their oxygen masks before assisting others. The key to realizing our mission here in Student Affairs lies within our staff's inclusive well-being and growth. And that's kind of how we got to this partnership with Sounding Board, which I'll talk about here in a second. The second point, and I think this came up in the chat I saw, I'm really proud of our president, our VPs, for their bold strategic plan that really has anchored us. One of the priorities of our strategic plan was called "We Invest in People and Communities." And it really was a declaration that we are going to invest in our people and our communities around the employee experience, the faculty experience, and the student experience. And so it really gave us an anchor point and license to do a lot of the work that we were doing. It wasn't just lip service. It was now we were holding ourselves accountable as an institution to this work, which really, really helped and propelled us to move forward. One of the things that we've also offered in the investment of people and community is a new onboarding program called Terrapin Strong. And this really kind of kicked off a lot of the investment of the staff experience for our onboarding of all of our faculty, staff, and students to take part in this shared onboarding that really focused on our institutional values, centered around belonging, community, and inclusion. And it also recognized when the institution has failed, when the institution has not lived up to its ideals and values. So as a new staff or a new faculty and a new student, you were hearing these messages as you were onboarding through your first 30 days of employment or when you started your academic career at the institution. And so it has really taken shape and hold into the fabric of our onboarding process and really helped us along the way. And then another thing that we have going on is that we will be launching our new divisional strategic plan that's really grounded us that we are educators in the Division of Student Affairs. I would argue that we are all educators in student affairs as a profession, and that we understand student success holistically, and we infuse the ideas model, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, anti-racism, and social justice in all of our practices and ethics. And so this is all coming down from a top-down model, which is really great. And again, all of this has given us a foundation to advance this movement of this culture of care, of kindness, of compassion, and belonging at the University of Maryland, College Park. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about now why coaching, why leadership coaching. So again, when Dr. Prines stepped in as our new president, he enacted this Fearlessly Forward strategic plan, which empowered us to pursue excellence and impact the public good. When the strategic plan was launched, it really created this paradigm shift for our work with our students and staff. And we had conducted pulse surveys, climate surveys. And one of the things that came out of those surveys was that our supervisors, our leaders of people, were struggling. They were struggling to lead others. They were also accountability that came up. So in turn, we noticed that people were struggling and we wanted to do something about it. So Mary talked a little bit about in the intro, and I didn't share this with everyone, but I am a trained coach through the Coactive Training Institute and through the International Coaching Federation. And as I kind of went through this process of coaching, I always asked myself the question, like, what would it be like to bring a coaching culture to the University of Maryland? And so our vice president, Dr. Patty Perillo, unanimously agreed that this was the path forward, and that she believed that a coaching culture can really help us start to embody the values and not make it lip service. That if we train leaders to be more curious, to be more empathetic, to have more of a growth mindset and open mindset, what would our university look like? And so as we did this work, And as many of you probably on this call, you did your research. And we scanned many higher education institutions and found that schools were investing in leadership coaching. I noticed that some were investing more in their VP levels or the deans in the academic world. But part of what my vision was, what if we democratize coaching? What if we got it to everyone from the housekeeper to all the way to our vice president? And what would that look like? And how would we feel and see the change in our campus? And so we did the work. And as a result, we created this application process where we selected 50 leaders within the Division of Student Affairs to take part in the leadership coaching pilot program through Sounding Board. And so right now we're currently in 3 months into the program. And I know for a fact that the coaches have experienced some really positive benefits thus far. And we'll share some of that feedback that we've gotten thus far. It may be of interest to some of you. But the bottom line, why coaching? I know, and I fully believe in my heart that coaching works. Also, we wanted to invest in our leaders and in our people in a way that gave them real access to these communities, which really tied into our DEI values that we wanted everyone to have access to this kind of to the service. And then, we wanted to reimagine learning in a way that celebrates the uniqueness of each of our leaders. And if we look at our leaders as people and as, holistically, everyone comes from a different background, different way of life. And we need to, lead and also teach in a way that celebrates that uniqueness. So that's kind of my bottom line of how we got into leadership coaching. And so I want to share with you a little bit about Sounding Board's framework, because it really spoke to me as we were going through the procurement process, and the Sounding Board way really addressed what we needed for this pilot program, which was leadership development. And Mary talked a little bit about the horizontal and vertical framework and the capabilities piece. And again, their framework centered around leadership capabilities, and it really resonated with us in the division. And we were able to align some of these to our desired outcomes within the Division of Student Affairs. So the participants within our program span from, supervisors of people of one or teams. They were from the assistant director level all the way to our vice president. They were able to apply for this. And what we used in terms of the capabilities, we selected self-awareness, communication, interpersonal skills, execution, developing others, and leading high-performing teams and promoting DEI. And in the coaching engagement, coaches were able to develop their own leadership roadmap, which included their goals that the coach will support the leader on. And so the coachee really determines the path forward in a safe container with the coach to allow brainstorming, accountability, and reflection. There are pre, mid, and post checkpoints that we use to gather information for both the coachee's learning, but also we brought along the manager to provide that feedback. And we will be able to paint a picture of where there have been some changes within the coachee. And in my opinion, having the manager really enriches the experience for the coachee and creates conversations that may not have happened without coaching. And so, again, these are just some of the capabilities that Sounding Board offers from different levels, but we found the ones that we selected fit in most of what we were trying to accomplish here at the university. And then this next slide is, again, some data from our checkpoint survey. We're at the 3-month mark of a 6-month pilot program. So coachees will have different expectations and desired leadership capabilities for improvement during their coaching engagement. And below are the top outcomes and capabilities that coachees believe they need more attention on in their coaching engagement. And so that first part, coachees who associated these desired leadership capabilities with at least one of their goals for coaching during the creation process. So 87% had a goal that was centered around this capability around communication. That second piece, the top 5 business outcomes, coachees who associated these desired business outcomes with at least one of their goals for coaching during the the goal creation process. So 90% of the participants cited that to improve team effectiveness was most important to them. And so again, we will learn more as we kind of go along, and this is all great data that we get to see from Sounding Board on a regular cadence and a regular basis, which I appreciate. And then if you want to go to the last slide, Anna. So here are some testimonials from some of our coachees. These are just 3 of many others that I get on a biweekly cadence from Sounding Board that I get to read and hear directly from coaches in the program that I interface with. But I'll give you a second to kind of like soak in what you see on the screen. I'm not going to read all of them, but hopefully you can kind of see the impact that this coaching engagement has had. Particularly from that first one, is not a cookie cutter process. Then that speaks to the uniqueness of this experience. When you work with a coach that's a good fit, there's a level of trust and vulnerability that you can have that's really important. And then when we're talking about identities, this person named the importance of identities and that they matter to them. And so I'm really grateful and appreciative from Sounding Board to be mindful of that, and that identities matter within a coaching engagement and in this relationship. So I'll leave you with this, and then we'll turn it over to questions. I know this is a lot, but my final piece is that, again, we believe that coaching has an impact on leaders, and we're excited to see how this reverberates to our campus community. I think of coaching as deepening oneself. And I would remind you to just remember the oxygen mask analogy that I shared, that if we can't help leaders kind of hold the mirror to themselves and do those reflections, then how are they able to serve students in a way that is profound? And then I also want to recognize that this is an investment, and I'm coming to you from an institution that has resources to do this. But there are programs like this that you can look into as well. And I think there's opportunities to infuse a coaching culture into your culture. And I'm happy to talk offline with folks who are interested in that. But I kind of wanted to name that because I think it's important as you kind of hear a lot of the things that we're doing here at the University of Maryland College Park. And so with that, we will go to the next slide, which I think is questions. And so
I see, so there's a question and answer repository, if you will, at the bottom of the screen. And we have one question that's coming in, which is, how should an organization be prepared to take into account the plight of participants while also enhancing smooth participation throughout a learning program? That's coming in from Joseph. Joseph, I'm wondering what the plight of the participants might be, and where there is, and what smooth looks like. So are we able to expound on that either through the chat or coming on off of mute, Joseph?
a great question.
Should we take it on? Do you have a response, Earl, that's coming to mind, or?
Why don't you go first, Mary, and then let me collect my thoughts as I'm looking through the chat.
Well, I have all sorts of assumptions about what plights of participants might be. But what I'll lean into coaching and to what we've already shared about coaching, in that if that coaching takes us out of kind of a learning program and puts the coachee at the center of a coaching process. And because the coachee is at the center, we have real strong interest as coaches to understand what informs who they are, right? What are their beliefs, their values, their interests, Who are they aspiring to be or hope to be as leaders from where they sit in an organization? And what are the challenges that they may encounter giving that set of aspirations and hopes and goals that they have? And so I think coaches are prepared to be in those conversations. And as you said, you use the metaphor we often do about holding up the mirror and reflecting back. Um, and so that's the exploration that can be had in a coaching relationship, because now we start to kind of deepen the conversation around those things. Um, I'm not so sure I understand while enhancing a smooth participation through a learning program it is, but again, I'll make some assumptions here. I think that as coaches, I often say as a coach, this is a conversation that you will have with me as your coach that you more than likely are not having with anyone else. I'm an objective observer. I'm a third party who is here to listen and to encourage and to probe and question and maybe sometimes provoke. And so the safe and vulnerable space is created through a coaching relationship to invite the coachee into that. And I think when we do that successfully and the coachee understands that this is indeed a space for them and for working through those, establishing an agenda and objectives, I think smooth participation ensues. So you mentioned, Earl, we have all sorts of tools that are available to us as coaches, goal setting, roadmaps, assessments, those kinds of things. And I think that those also are scaffolding and support to a very successful coaching engagement.
Yeah, I mean, Mary, I think you kind of hit the big ones. I think the only thing that I could probably maybe add is that, we all come to coaching needing some sort of assistance and, brainstorming and just kind of letting it all out. And so, a lot of that is going to happen in the coaching. And for one who is a coach, like I've seen it happen, I've experienced it myself. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything else to add other than what Mary has said, but yeah.
Well, it's live, right? It really moves us off the training dime and moves us into examining and exploring the individual within their context.
Yeah.
What's happening in your situation that's unique to you or unique to your organization, and where can the coach be supportive in helping sort of widen those lens for the coachee, and to also experiment and test and try these new skills, these new capabilities. I think that for me in coaching is what's most exciting, that the coachees directing where they want to go, the coach is supporting and challenging and scaffolding the learning as the coachee is going out and trying some new things. So it goes to your point earlier, right? That if we can the cognitive aspects of learning are very important. You mentioned going to conferences earlier in our presentation today. Where we see that the activation of that learning and the application of the learning diminishes when you go back and other things are pressing on you for your time and attention, and one's own leadership development doesn't rise to the top, right? So I think that in coaching, there's a learning agenda here, and it's an active learning agenda. Let me move on to the next question here. Megan is asking, how many people are in the pilot program? I think you mentioned it earlier, but it might bear repeating for Megan.
Yeah, it's 50. And so we took 50, we opened it up to anyone who oversees full-time staff. That was the criteria. And so 50 leaders spanning from some of our coordinator or assistant director levels who oversee people all the way up to our VP. And so that we chose 50 because it was a good benchmark to kind of see the impact. And we got some directors and department heads with very large human resources and people who oversee them, and to be able to kind of anecdotally hear from some of the folks in those departments that like, I know that my director is going through this and I'm noticing this and that. And so I think that to me was a part of the intentionality of trying to get a different representation into the program and apply for it. So it's a great question.
Here's
Uh,
another one. Here's another one, Earl, for
yeah.
you. How is your coaching program structured? Monthly, annually, individual, or by group?
Yeah, I saw that. That's a great question, Oscar. Thanks for asking. So the program allows us to get 6 months of coaching, which equates to 12 sessions. And those are happening at a biweekly cadence we recommend. Now, because I'm the sponsor of the program, I see when people are scheduling. And yes, people will reschedule and that's okay. And I mean, there's things that happen. And so it's usually a bi-weekly kind of cadence to be able to just kind of have the coachee really sit with it, reflect in between the 2 weeks, and then whatever the outcome was to try it within the 2 weeks, and then they would have that time with their coach. And so we find that cadence works. And I think most of our 50 participants, based on how I see the scheduling, is what they're doing. And so that's a great question, though.
It is the cadence we recommend every 2 weeks, right? Momentum. So because it's building in momentum, and we also like to say that the results of great coaching happen between the sessions. And so having assigning homework, giving assignments, having the coachee do certain things between those sessions is also part of the coaching. There's one more question here, and that I'll just ask, and I think I'll direct it to Earl.
Sure.
Earl, how do you get organizational and institutional buy-in for leadership development or leadership coaching as opposed to more traditional types of programs?
Yeah, I saw that question. That's a good one. So if I'm going to bottom line it, I think you got to tie it back to the institution and try to start with that, see what's most important to your institution, and try to identify organizational needs and objectives with that. I engaged our leaders up front. I'm in a position where I have access to departmental directors who oversee large budgets and buildings. And to be able to sit down with them and just kind of vision out like this vision of what if we offered coaching and we taught the skills of coaching, and like, it really just paints the picture. And I think you have to take people there, because there's always going to be people to say, I don't have time for this, or we got other priorities. There's always an excuse. And I think if we're really living into our values, I think that is a way to just kind of bring people along, because a lot of this is really selling to the leaders that, we need to, at least explore this. And so I just think bringing people along and engaging key stakeholders is really good. I went on a whole tour of campus and talking to academic affairs and admin affairs to really get a sense of this is something that we can do institutionally. And it is. I think now that we're leading the way in student affairs, there's all these conversations within university human resources saying, hey, we need to do what student affairs is doing. And I think it just takes a couple of people to really share the vision and see what we can do. So that's another thing. I would say, propose a pilot program, have a proposal written for the people that you need to get this in front of. And I think for me, because I come from a coaching background, it's really, I think you could tell from my voice and my cadence that like, I'm excited about this. Like, it's something that I believe in, and it's part of who I am, but I think you have to really believe and do your research and homework and all that stuff, because I get it, right? Budgets are tight and all that stuff, but those are just some things that come top to mind for me. So
Thanks, Earl. Thanks, Earl. Well, we're at the end of our time. It went so quickly. It always does, and we have a great conversation going. So I want to thank the audience for joining us today. Thank you for making time to spend with Earl and myself. And Earl, I want to thank you for joining our webinar and sharing the University of Maryland College Park story. We hope that you're taking some things away. You've got some new perspectives or considerations as you're thinking about your own leadership development programs within your institutions. And if you'd like to learn more about Sounding Board and how we do work with institutions and organizations to develop dynamic leaders at all levels, come and visit us at soundingboardinc.com. And you also may see a follow-up email in your inbox today, which shares this recording. So hope you'll share that with others as well. So thanks so much. It's been my pleasure and our pleasure being with you today.
Thank you, everyone. Be well.
Thank you.